the darkest corners of the podcast dungeon, you have come across another goddamn horror podcast with Graham Faye, Jonas Barnes, and Ryan Danley.
Welcome, everybody, to yet another goddamn horror podcast. I am one of your hosts. I am Ryan Danley, coming to you from Portland, Oregon. Jonas is coming to you from Bushwick, Brooklyn. Hey, Jonas, normally we do. Hey, Graham had to sit it out tonight. He's not feeling good, so much love to you, Graham.
Graham's skeleton is trying to escape his body.
Yeah, that's literally what he said. He said he had bone-itis, whatever that is. You know what I mean? So Graham is somewhere under a blanket, which he would be anyways. But he is not with us tonight. But hey, Jonas, should we get just right into this, or should we?
No, we should. We should absolutely get right into it.
Because no problem.
No. We have a phenomenal guest here today because it's not only a repeat guest, but somebody who we are very much a fan of, and somebody that all of our listeners are very much a fan of. And we're very lucky to have him back on the show today. David Howard Thornton, how you doing, man?
I am doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, man.
We're doing good. The last time you were on was between Terrifier 1 and 2, and you know I haven't really been paying attention, man. Anything happened between them?
Just a smidge.
Yeah, just a smidge. You know, breaking world records. You know, moving to LA, stuff
nothing
like
huge,
that.
nothing big.
Right.
Speaking of which, we do want to say congratulations to Terrifier 3 and to you, Art the Clown, for the world's most profitable film of 2024, Terrifier 3.
That's insanity.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean,
oh man,
insanity. If you had told us back when our producers were stressing about going a little bit over budget that we were going to have the most profitable film of the year. I was telling them, like, guys, we're gonna be fine, but I didn't realize this fine. So I'm like, oh, this is good fine.
Yeah,
this is like what 45 times or like something like that the cost of the making of the film, which is crazy, especially if you've seen the movie. It's just like, you know, I mean, we are fully in a horror renaissance. You know,
it's
getting
cool.
Yeah, it's really great,
man.
I mean, like, and you know, Jonas and I were talking about like what in the movie costs money, and like, you know, like, I mean, the special effects had to be like, I mean, especially since Damien wasn't doing them himself, that there had to be like, I mean, like the, you know, when you're chainsawing body, you know, another split body. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Frozen Santa Claus, and spoiler alerts to anybody else. But, you know, there's a lot of, you know, a lot of really, of course, amazing kills, as you come to expect from this series. And, you know, I mean, like this is such an interviewee question, and I apologize, but I just need to know, like, how has it gone from being like a cult horror, like favorite to like, I mean, like literally like a horror icon?
It's been very crazy. This is like, it definitely surpassed our wildest expectations where we thought this thing would go. It's like, you know, it's like when, you know, part 1 came out, we were just happy that a few people saw it. When we had some people show up at a convention, they had a tattoo. We were like, wow, that's amazing. Now it's like almost every other person at these conventions now has a tattoo of Art or something like that. And it's like, now you can go to Walmart and you can find Art the Clown gummy worms. I'm like, what the hell? It's insane. It makes me think back to like the 80s when like around like Nightmare 3 or 4 came out, because there was like Freddy Krueger stuff everywhere. I remember going like Shoe Carnival just to get a new pair of shoes as a kid, and I see Freddy Krueger dolls and stuff like that in Shoe Carnival of all places. And
sure.
That's how I was kind of introduced to Freddy too, in a lot of ways, because I was so young then. And so that's what I think is so wild about it. Is like, now you see Art everywhere, and he's become so recognizable in, like, you know, the zeitgeist right now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is like it kind of like crossed, and it's amazing because we do our main focus is on independent horror here on this podcast, and we have seen Art the Clown go from like the fandoms of independent horror, like the type of folks who will watch Shudder movies and watch low budget stuff and watch, more art driven shows, to like now it's like your grandmother's like, oh my God, did you see Art the Clown dressed as Santa Claus on the mall? You know what I mean? Like it's a whole different animal now, and that's going to be it's going to be a pretty special place to land. You know what I mean? Like
it's very interesting, especially seeing like children that haven't even really seen the movie, but they love the look of the clown and they're obsessed with the look of the clown. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah, you're like,
yeah, he's not particularly nice to children in the third one.
No.
I'm guessing, I don't know, he did like the girl in the second. So like
he gave her a little wave.
Yeah. So
he had a blast with the other ones though.
He did have a blast.
Yeah, Art the Clown is a clown of many talents. I was going to call him a man, but I'm not sure at this point he is a man. He's some sort of.
We're not quite sure yet.
We're not quite sure what there's some
like Michael Myers. He's transcended.
Yes, exactly,
yes,
exactly. Yeah, he's gone. He also can like chill for 5 years, which was a big one of my favorite parts of the movie. I'm like, God, that just seems so nice to just sit in a chair for like 5 years.
Oh, that was very nice.
Just relax. Yeah,
I was like, can I just do the whole film like that? That's the whole entire film. Is just Art sitting in a chair staring at the screen. I think that would be hysterical.
That would be. Everybody's like, yeah, this is really interesting. It's like it's
Skinamarink Part 2.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Damien Skinamarink.
Yeah.
It was.
What was really funny? What was funny about that scene specifically to me is the guy that is there. Like, I'm not gonna say what happens to him because of spoilers, but the guy that was there that encounters you. The last time I had seen him on a movie was in a movie called Outside Providence, which was like an obscure comedy. Like, for the most part, it was an obscure comedy. And I remember him being Drugs Delaney from that movie. I'm just like, and like seeing him on the movie, I was just like, oh, Drugs, you've gone so far in life now. Like, you've encountered Art the Clown.
Yeah. Oh, Johnny's great. He's so good at playing those type of characters. It's like, he was a scary movie.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. All that good stuff he's so good at playing these like douchey characters, but in real life he is the biggest sweetheart. He is the coolest dude.
Oh, I love it.
He seems like an absolute sweetheart.
I
love him.
The vibe you get from the movies is that everybody on there is in on the joke. You know what I mean? Like, in on it and having a good time. And it feels like with like a lot of independent films, like the director's got a lot of buy-in from the people because it's about like we're going to make something kind of cool here. You know?
Yeah. We're not trying to do elevated horror by any means.
Right. Although,
somewhat though.
I don't know. Like, I feel like I
there's a little bit of it in there.
There's a little bit. There's a little. I mean, it's. I mean, the movie is so.
But we're not trying to be that genre,
right?
Like, sure. Yeah.
What I found is interesting though is like in the first two films, a lot of people are like, oh, there's no plot to these movies. Now people are like, oh, there's lore. I'm like, yeah. Now you're picking up on all the lore, the subtext that's been going on this whole entire time.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I'm glad, because that was one thing that kind of annoyed me. The whole, especially with part 1 and 2, is like, there's no plot. I'm like, actually, there is very much of a plot. You're only seeing one act of a play right now. You haven't seen the whole entire play yet.
And I've argued with people about there being plot, specifically in the first one, a lot. There is 100% absolutely a plot. There's first, second, third act. There is clearly there is Aegon, and I mean, like, if you are a writer, like, and you look at like Terrifier and you're like, yeah, this is a plot. It might be simple, but almost like the simpler it gets, the harder it is for it to be good and to have gravity. And like the thing that made the first one so good is that it does have gravity, and it's like, and it doesn't take much. And I'm not going to name any other names, but since Terrifier has come out, it has sort of kicked over a domino of, and I'm sure you've noticed, of movies that are very, you know, a lot of gore and a lot of like, you know, and are popular, and I'm fine with all of that. Like, I like, you know, I mean, clearly I'm a fan, and I think the more movies like that, the better, and I'll watch them. But you can definitely tell the ones that the movies, the movies that have soul, and the movies that don't, and that you can't like, it's not easy enough just to do some cool special effects and write 5 kills and do, like, there has to be, like, I mean, your performance in one was, you know, legendary at this point. You know, I mean, it was legendary when it first happened, but became sort of like, oh, you did it, and like, you like, oh, this is like the look on your face after you use the gun in the first one is like one of my favorite moments in horror history, because it's like, it just gives, like, it's there's just presence there. And so, like, people can argue that there's not plots and stuff like that. I'm like, if there was no plot, we would not be talking about this movie, because you wouldn't have watched the whole thing, or you wouldn't have cared about it. Like, that is like, well, the whole thing, because you need all of that to do, you know what I mean? So so I've, you know, I can go on forever about about it. This is something that's it matters to me, but it's you know, so you've created this like amazing character, and 3 is a lot of fun. Clint Howard makes an appearance. That's that's gotta be
Howard.
Yeah,
Clint was cracking us all up with his little one-liners he was making up. It was just like, oh my god, he was just making so much stuff. I was like, oh my god, they're all gold. They're all, I was like, this is just hysterical. I just remember there's like this one part of the night where he's just recording different reactions to me just pulling out the gun, and he's like, shit. It was, I was dying laughing, because it was just hearing him cuss makes me laugh anyway.
Sure.
I was just like, this, because Clint, he's such a wholesome guy, and I'm like, I love this. Love this.
Yeah, you know, we are of course big fans of his on his show.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, you know, growing up, like he couldn't have ended up better growing up with, like, you know, with Ron Howard as his brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you grow up, you got Ron Howard, freaking Opie Cunningham as your brother, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you end up, like, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna go out there and do these like gnarly independent films, and it's just like,
be the ice cream man.
Be the ice cream man.
He's trying to develop a Ice Cream Man 2 right now too.
Oh,
nice.
God.
Yeah, I love it.
I love Ice Cream Man. So
my gosh, he's just great. I just he never wants to stop. He just keeps going and going and going, and I love that. He's just got that kind of drive.
That's that warms my soul, because we need more Clint Howard in this world.
I think the cover of Ice Cream Man is like one of the quintessential like video store covers. Like, for us kids that were into horror, you'd walk by and it's like, is that fucking eyeballs on an ice cream cone? Like, I'm gonna watch that movie now. Like,
it grabs you. You're like, I have to go see that. That's the thing. Is like, especially back then, that's how they grabbed people, was those covers, because you know you couldn't watch a preview of it on like online or anything like that. You just saw these really cool covers, and you're like, that looks interesting. I want to see that.
Yep. And I spent a lot of time in video stores as a kid. It was my mom worked in upstairs of a building that had one in the basement, and literally, like, I would go to work with her in the summer, and I would just like walk and like just read the back of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the stuff, you know, all of those original first wave VHS horror, and it was a you know, not to be an old guy, but I do kind of think that there was something special to that we might not have now. And I try not to be that way. Like, I'm glad that we have more access and more availability with streaming, and like, clearly, but there was something nice about like being kind of taken in by that art, and like walking around.
I wish we had both now. Like, I wish we had both the accessibility, but also the ability to walk into a store and feel like a kid again. You know, get in trouble for sneaking into the back room. Like,
what's behind this beaded curtain?
Exactly.
How can I get through this curtain without it making any noise?
Exactly. Then you did the Grinch knockoff movie. You did that.
The trademark-free Grinch movie is what I would call it.
The mean one.
The mean one. That had to be a blast. That had to be talk about like one of the like premier villains. You know what I mean? Of all time.
It's America's also is the first truly American Christmas story too.
Sure. Yeah. And it's I'm pro Grinch until he kind of sells out. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he should have rode that. You don't just get to be nice today. You know, it's like it's the same thing with Scrooge. Like Scrooge comes out the next day and he's been like oppressing the working poor his entire life. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then he has like one moment like where he's been terrified. He's like, I'm the good guy now, and everybody's like, fantastic. I'm like, nah. Like you gotta earn, buddy.
Yeah.
You
just can't buy a big giant turkey for one family and give some urchin a shilling for a step and be like, okay, everything's changed now. I'm great. Everybody's gonna love me. No, people are gonna be like, no.
Let's look at Let's look at the books in 2 months and see how you feel about that wealth distribution. So,
was it cool going from playing the Grinch like early on in like your theater stuff, going to that playing the horror Grinch now? Was that fun?
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. Because I was able to bring some of the stuff that, I learned under Stefan when I was his understudy as the Grinch and put it into this role and do it in a more a different way, but a fun way too. So because that movie is not a serious horror movie by any way. It's very tongue in cheek. As I always say, it's like the Hallmark Channel made a horror movie, and I think what made it work so well was everybody played it straight, like this was a serious horror movie, but it's so ridiculous and preposterous at the same time that's where the comedy comes from.
Right. That's really one of the greatest tricks in the world, is making something ridiculous and then just being serious. I actually adopt a lot of that into my stand-up. Saying ridiculous things like I'm dead serious. You know what I mean? Like it's
I like being a horror fan and seeing certain things happen in a scene, like certain things that are just like alluded to in a scene where you're like, oh, that's going to be used later. And like that happens in the Mean One, where you see like that the restaurant basically has its own meat grinder, like, and you're just like, you see it and you're like, oh, okay. Like,
sitting out there out front too. It's just like for everybody to see. It's like as a restaurant usually does, they have their meat grinder out there in close proximity to all the guests, so they can go by and accidentally fall into it.
As soon as that happened, as soon as I saw that on screen, I was like, all right, I'm gonna like this scene. All right.
This is gonna be,
doesn't matter what else happens. I know that I'm gonna like this scene now.
We put a person in a meat grinder. It was fun.
Yeah. As you do.
You do.
So I could talk to you about Terrifier forever, because it's in our line of work here, in independent horror, it is clearly, since we've been doing it, the independent horror franchise, which has opened a lot of doors for people and made and honestly, like, made dollars enough that like a lot of independent horror might be getting different looks now, and definitely,
I hope so.
And I mean, it can't hurt, you know what I mean? And
it's definitely got people talking. I know here, at least in Hollywood, in the industry, they're talking. We've had directors, prominent directors that I don't want to name names, but like very prominent horror directors, flat out thanking us basically for this, because they're like, you have now given us clout that we can, because they've been, I know one director especially where he's been told to change so many things by the studio, so it's really not his original vision. What's put out there on the screen is not what he wanted, and it's because studios were coming in, no, got to play it safe. They take something that was supposed to be rated R and made it PG. And he's like, now I have something I can go to the studios with and go and fight for my vision with, because there's this proven commodity here that's been proven to work, and you don't necessarily have to worry about the MPAA in a lot of ways. You can go further with some things and still put butts in seats, and it'll still turn a profit.
and that's really what, I mean, I think that there's probably, maybe I don't know how familiar people are with the MPAA's sort of stranglehold on movies and the movie industry. And I mean, you don't have to look too far into one of my favorite of the franchise, which is Friday the 13th 7, which the MPAA famously like neutered to the point of to the point where like the movie's like really bad, and apparently all of that footage is gone, which is really unfortunate because
that is a shame.
Yeah, it's really too bad. But all of those kills had to be like basically turned into like made for TV movie kills, and because they just specifically hated the Friday the 13th franchise, and I think people just forgot like, oh yeah, we don't actually need the MPAA for anything. Like, is anybody asking for this? Is this what I mean, yes, I'm certain that there are tons of people asking for it, but you look at like
studios cough,
studios like right-wing groups, like things like that want like control things, but the thing is like we can do all of this ourselves, and you know what I mean, and there and all of this was put into place to control art in and of itself. So when you look at and then I mean, this is why I don't get nostalgic over Blockbuster either, because they were worse. They were actually like the MPA times 1,000 about what could go into Blockbuster. That's why I miss those old school independent stores that had the ice cream mans and the closed booth in the back, because they were like, we're just going to rent videos and we don't care what it is.
As it should be. It's like it's like. It goes back, with like the comic codes and all that kind of stuff too. But all that came basically from like the Red Scare,
right?
And it's that the whole these extreme conservative groups got out there. The children. And I'm like, children. You look at the old fairy tales that we had. The Grimm's fairy tales are called Grimm for a reason. It's just like, that there was a time where, we didn't coddle children so much. You actually put the fear of God into kids to get them behaved.
Right. Right. And like, and, a lot of those people, the prisons are filled with people like that, So I think that, like, I mean, this is anecdotal, of course, but I have 2 kids, and, and I mean, I didn't let them watch anything. What I mean? But I felt like my job as a parent was to instill like morals and values into my kids that were just based on, and that were basically like, this is art and it's fake. And like, you are going to be a good person, and a good person can enjoy art that's violent or pushes boundaries or is titillating or anything like that, and do that. And you know what? Oddly enough, my kids are grown, and they are literally like 2 of the best people I know.
I always leave all that kind of stuff up to the parents. It's like, because parents know what their children can handle. Different children can handle different things.
Right.
I mean, I look at like Chrissy's daughter Elle. She's like 5 years old. She's watched so many horror movies. I know there's some bits and pieces that they won't allow her to see until she's older. But she's totally fine and well adjusted. It's like, and I think she's probably more well adjusted than a lot of other children her age, because she doesn't have certain fears about certain things. And she's like, okay, I can deal with this.
I mean, absolutely, and and also like, I think the best way to show kids that like you're not living in kids to not live in like a fantasy world of video games or anything is to like go ahead and just be like, this is what this looks like in real violence. Real violence is not what this is, and this is cartoonish. This is fake. And this is funny and stuff like that, but we want to go into the world being really good people, and we can, you know what I mean. And this is, so we can. I mean, we could talk about this forever, but like, I
even look like the violence in cartoons were like before, like the 2000s, especially like the old Warner Brothers cartoons. I mean, those things, Tex Avery, all that, Tom and Jerry, so violent, and then you had like the 80s came in, and they started changing children's shows where like, okay, these can't be just, commercials for toys, and you got to have a little moral lesson at the end of every show and blah, 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 blah. And it just kind of snowballed from there, where let's just play it safer and safer and safer and safer and safer. In some ways, I also feel like, when you're doing that, you're not really preparing children for real life.
You're like, I think the worst thing that you can do is withhold things from child and then expect them just to know what to do when those things come into their lives. Like, you know what I mean?
There's ways to do it. There's ways to, expose them to the harder aspects of life, but in like, positive ways and ways that are not going to scar them, but also ways that they can build off of that knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
I would buy like Barbie dolls for my kids, and some people would complain and say like, oh, you're buying, that promotes of this and that. And yeah, and I'm not saying that it does. I'm not saying that, but the reality is if a Barbie doll ruins my daughter's like self-esteem, then I've done a really terrible job as a parent. You know what I mean? Like I cannot let TV parent my kids. I have to parent my kids.
Exactly.
And I can't hide them from the influences of the world. What I have to do is show them the influences that the world offer, and then have them manage their way through that and navigate a life that is good with the influences that we have. Like, it would be amazing to take the influences away, but and to say, okay, well, we're all going to just be like just really great people, and that's not really how things play out. And so
not preparing them.
Nope. Exactly. So
you guys have similar.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, you guys have similar views to what my mom would do with me when I was a kid. She would let me watch something, or let me do something, or let me experience something, and then after it was done, she would be like, "Okay, what questions do you have?"
Yeah.
Like, and it would be like, "Okay, let's talk about it." And then that's what would end up happening, whether it was a movie or like, I remember one time I took acid for the first time, and I told my mom the next day. I was like, I took acid last night. She was like, all right, let's talk about it. Like, she didn't tell me. Yeah, and like straight up, she was like, let's talk about it. What happened? Like, what do you feel about this? I was like, I took too much is what I did. And she was like, all right, and it was always stuff where like it was controlled exposure, but at the same time, it was like, you get to experience this. And now we get to talk about it if you want to talk about it. If you have questions. That's how I got into horror movies. I watched them super young, and she was like, okay, what are your questions about what you just watched?
Yeah, there's one thing. There's like this one company that I always felt they've handled addressing more adult issues with children, but in a very mature way that children understand. It's like the Henson Company, especially with Sesame Street.
Mm-hmm.
They have tackled so many adult situations, very complex narrative, but did it in a very tactful way, but not a dumbed down way for children. The greatest example of that, I think, is how they tackled death.
Right.
And the concept of death is like when Mr. Hooper died. And that's something that's always stuck with me, because that happened when I was a child, when I was watching Sesame Street.
Sure.
I was a child when Mr. Hooper died. I was watching Sesame Street, and that was a big deal. And my mom sat down with me during that episode to answer questions I had after that. And that's how I really, truly understood the concept of death for the first time. And then shortly afterwards, we had a baby raccoon that my father had found, and we were trying to nurse it back to health, and it died. And I was able to process what had happened because of that episode of Sesame Street.
When Mr. Hooper died and they decided to tackle that is really one of the greatest moments in
it really is
in television history, because it is famous for what it is. And then you and I are around the same age, and I fully remember him dying, and it was a whole thing. And then they decided, they're like, no, we're not going to just have Mr. This is a learning process, and and getting kids to process things with sadness, with things like that, like that it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to have feelings about these things, and it's okay to so much of we don't want to be sad, but sadness happens. And if we start those synapses relays working the right directions when we're young, it gives us way less. But
that's why you see so many guys that are they pin everything up. They don't, because they were taught their whole entire life that it's not okay to show sadness. It's not okay to show you're a man. You have to have a stone wall. You can't show emotion or anything like that. And they self-destruct later on in life because they don't know how to process those more complex emotions in a constructive way. So a lot of them get into drugs and alcohol and stuff like that instead of actually going out there and like letting them just cry for once. It's totally fine. And that's something I liked about those shows. Mr. Rogers was another one that was great about that. Sure. It's like, it's okay to feel things.
Yep. It's we'll never. I don't know if we'll see that again. Because we still keep we won't need to get into politics on this, but like we still getting pulled into this like cruelty whose toughness bullshit that people have decided that it is, as opposed to like, hey, you know what? Like the toughest I am is when like I'm like caring about the people in my life and I'm defending what's right. And I mean, and I think that gets very and it's real easy to forget to fall into that old thing of like, oh, we're just gonna have to iron it off, and unfortunately we still have
this also kind of ties into something that I'm glad Damien touched on in Terrifier 3, and it is dealing with the mental problems survivors go through, the PTSD and all that. I was so glad, because that's something that's always annoyed me in other franchises where your heroine or heroes go through horrible psychologically scarring ordeal, and then the next film they're totally fine and well adjusted to life. And I'm that's just not how life works. And I'm so glad that Damien addressed that aspect with both Sienna and Elliot's characters, and how they're both handling losing their mother and their friends in such a violent way and being attacked, and how they've dealt with that. And I feel especially Lauren handled that so well in this movie. Just the
performances in that movie, like what he got out of y'all is amazing. I mean, you're great. You are great. You're great. You are so good. And we love she came in and acted her ass off. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't a single time I was like, oh, this is shitty acting because this is like a horror movie. I didn't even have to give my allowance for independent horror acting, so because sometimes that's not the point. And I'm good with that. I mean, I've watched a lot of horror movies, a lot of spectrum of acting in them, but she really gives like an honest to God real performance. And I like Jonas and I were talking about it. We were talking about Terrifier 3 the other day, and we're like, the performance, like her, like it's so like believable, like when she's at the table. And that's such a great scene too, because it's so gnarly. It's so gnarly, and
fangirl scene.
And it's rugged and it's good, and she's like really about it. And there wasn't a single moment that I was like, you find yourself like, oh, and you can feel it from the thing. And and that's what makes the Terrifier movies like you're talking about the gravity, and it's those little moments that are like, oh, this is why this is like, so you can say that you're not making elevated horror, but I don't know, like, you know what I mean? I don't think it's not, this isn't cheap. There is cheap horror out there, and there is horror that's out there for and I am good with all that. We will have those directors on the show, and we will talk about the fun kills that they do and all that stuff, and we can do it. But Terrifier 3 has the Terrifier series has transcended that of just being like, it is gory as fuck and it is mean as fuck, but there is more to it. And
exactly, there's a lot more nuance to it. And it's like, especially I always like to give her flowers there, because unlike how it is on the stage, where you can go through that whole entire complex set of emotions and you're able to like go on that arc, she wasn't able to do that because we didn't film consecutively. So she's filming one scene one day, and the scene that came before another day, a scene that comes after another day, and she's having to access where her character would be mentally at that stage. And you see her character during the course of the film become more and more and more and more mentally unhinged. And that's a major plot point, as you find out near the end of the movie, why they were trying to make her more and more and more unhinged. But you see that journey that she went on. And that's why I was amazed with her performances. Like, she knew exactly where she needed to be in that mental state for every single one of those scenes. She really sat there and really thought all that out. And I was like, and I don't think people truly appreciate what she pulled off.
I can tell you one thing specifically with people that I've seen the movie with and people that have seen the movie and have talked to me. I'm pretty vocal in the mental health communities because I've had like lots of things that I've gone through myself and everything like that. And PTSD and CPTSD and like stuff like that, traumatic, experiences is a big thing that comes up with a lot of friends of mine, especially friends of mine that watch horror. And it came up multiple times that with Lauren's performance in that movie, what consistently came up is I felt that. Like, I actually, like, there's a couple of people said they had to pause the movie because they legitimately felt it on like a cellular level. They were like, I've been there, like, in my own version of that.
I know. That's why I was just enamored with the performance. Like, you were accessing some very real things. And just like especially dealing with death of a parent and someone you really loved. And it's like I know that she hasn't really dealt with the death of a parent yet, as much as far as I believe, but still she was able to actually access that, and make it very believable in her portrayal. And that's why I was like, because I know that feeling. I know that loss, that regret that you have of certain things that it's how it can make you very bitter, especially when it's a very hard death. It's like, and it's, I mean, and you get tired of people doting on you and like, oh, you poor thing. You just leave me alone. I don't want to talk about this shit. It's like, I totally understand it. And that's why I really appreciate about her performance in this.
I have not lost a parent, but I will say that the one thing I've learned from the people in my life who has, which is, I now just when I find out about it, I just say, that really sucks. If you need anything, let me know. I think a lot of times in that situation, we can all be like trying to help and put more work. You know what I mean? Then you have to like make other people feel good, and and so for her to be able to go there and to be able to just like pull that out of like, like I'm trying. She felt like she was trying to be better and she wanted to be happy, but like that pending doom of, because you would never get over it. You know what I mean? And like, and like the dad is like, well, it's been 5 years, and like, you know what I mean? And it's like, all of it, so well written about all those, all those things. And anyways, when you see her next time, you tell her that the goddamn horror podcast dudes fucking
very much appreciate
very much. I could talk to you, like I said earlier, we could talk to you about Terrifier 3 or Terrifier in general forever, because we're big fans. But we were very fortunate to see a preview of the screener for the new project you have coming up. And knowing you, having talked to you before and having read up on you, I know what your like favorite character of all time is and like your dream gig. I of course wish it was Freddy Krueger, but because
there's always time.
He's up there. He's definitely up there.
Yeah, because I just think that you would be a great Freddy Krueger. So I'm just putting that out into the universe. You know what I mean? I'm just pushing over that domino. So whoever, you know what I mean? Like, so I just want that to grow, that seed to be planted. But you have always been a giant fan of the Joker.
Yes.
Were you a comic book kid?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. I'm like, one of my first action figures I even remember having was all those Mego Batman figures, and I had the Joker figure. And it was actually when I was really little, my parents had to hide that Joker figure from me for a little while because I was afraid of him. He scared me. And then I got over it, and I was like, oh, okay. And I loved him. I have always loved that character. I think he's such a dynamic character. He's so interesting, and I just think he's scary but funny at the same time, and I love those type of villains.
I think, yeah, he is. Yeah, and you can see that within your portrayal of Art the Clown, because Art is hilarious. You know what I mean? And like, and so it's cool to like see you actually like the realized version of this come on stage, and it is called Joker's Wild, and it is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
So how does this come about? Like, how do they just finally just hit you up one day and we're like, we got a Joker project going on, we'd love you to take part in it?
It started because it was my makeup artist Tatiana from the Mean One. It's like she's like, I want to one day just put you in some kind of Joker makeup and do a photo shoot. And I'm like, oh, that would be fun. I was like, well, I have a lot of his monologues memorized from like different comic books, and I would love to put those on film in that full getup. She's like, oh, that would be fun. And then Aaron is like a friend of hers, and they're just like, well, why don't we actually just do a whole entire scene, like a proof of concept type, a short fan film, just showing what we can do with it, but also add like horror elements to it. So to show a much darker version of this character than usually been traditionally seen on screen. And because that's my thing is I've always my big beef with like a lot of the Hollywood films is they all try to do something totally different that's outside of the character of the actual Joker. And they try to make him creepy, and because especially now that everybody's trying to do Heath Ledger.
Right.
And even then I was like, as much as I love Heath Ledger's version, that wasn't truly the version of the comic book.
Sure.
And I'm like, I've always wanted to bring a more of a depiction from the comic book to life, but also do my own take on it, and also, go a darker route with it, because he's such a dark character, and I like to add why he's such a scary character into him. And that's why I was really happy about this scene, because it comes from like one of the most famous story arcs ever from comic books too, with the whole death in the family story arc. And I was like, but we take our own little twist with that story too, right? Instead of doing verbatim from what you see in the comic books, we go a little beyond that.
Well, you go way beyond it. I have Death in the Family right here, which was in the comic book, and to go back to comic codes and stuff like that. I mean, the comic is brutal, specifically for and if our listeners don't know, Jason Todd was the after Dick Grayson became Nightwing, Batman, who has young boys at his disposal, apparently grabbed Jason Todd,
Aging Diddy.
exactly grabbed Jason Todd and kind of created him into his new sidekick and basically the new Robin. But Jason Todd was a bit undisciplined, he was very angry and very wild, and
well, he lived on the streets as a kid. Dick Grayson grew up in the circus with his parents. Jason had a very tough life living on the streets. That's how Batman found him too. Was just like he was trying to boost his tires off the Batmobile.
Right. And then got him into private school and got him into so a lot of my understanding is that he was unpopular as a character. And then so DC, I remember when they did this, and I partook, they set up a 1-800 where you could decide if he lived or died. And he was going to die by like 200 votes out of the tens of thousands that they got. They decided that he was going to die by 200 votes, and what you get is actually for the competing of the two most popular comic companies ever, mainstream stories, you actually get a pretty violent story with the Joker killing Jason Todd, which is of course going to be like is gnarly anyways, but they actually they do go ahead and like have the Joker beat Jason Todd with a crowbar. I mean it is and like blow him up and blow him up and blow him up. We won't get into what happens later, but
afterwards with Superman and the UN and
and then into the
Joker being an ambassador to Iran or something like
exactly.
that.
Right, exactly. But we or even into the whole Red Hood stuff, which see what I would love is like a 3-part Red Hood story, which would be fantastic, which would be way more interesting than even like the Dark Knight stuff. Just like because
putting all that in.
Right. So the scene
full
is
dark with it, just like full darkness.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So you take that scene and then you basically go and you look absolutely fantastic, and you look like the comic book Joker. And the second I saw when the first pictures came out, I was we had seen the first pictures before that they were publicly available, but they were because we're cool like that. I was like, oh my god, it's so perfect, because I like I was a comic book fan. Like, listen, like you said, I love the Heath Ledger thing, but like when it but seeing you look like comic book Joker was like, oh, it's so much better. Like, I appreciate gritty reboot and all this stuff, and that they wanted to make him nasty and psychotic and like look like real world crazy. And I'm there for that. I appreciate that take of it. And of course, those movies are beautiful. I have some complaints, but they are great movies. But seeing you and somebody who like truly understands the character and who loves it, and who is not only, I mean, because if people who just know you from the Terrifier, you're actually a voice guy, even having done the Joker before. You're a voice guy, which is hilarious because of your biggest success.
The irony of that,
right? Is that you made your huge success off of a guy who says absolutely nothing, but
you're the world's most profitable mime of 2024, and you happen to be a fucking fantastic voice artist. Like,
it's wild,
right? So you had done the Joker before, and what was how much of the Joker voiceover from the Nightwing web series did you bring into this Joker?
Oh, I definitely brought a lot of that, because that's the version that was about 10 years ago I did that now,
right? Which
is hard to believe, but I'm like, that is my version of the Joker. My version of the Joker is, I say, is a combination of my two favorite versions of the Joker. It's Cesar Romero, who I think was the best live action, and Mark Hamill, who I feel was the best version ever put to anything, because it's just like Mark truly understands that character, and just like Mark, my version has evolved over the years of playing with him, because you can look at like the first like episode of the animated series where Joker was on there, and then you see Joker in the Arkham games, and there's a full you can see his full evolution of this character that Mark has done with him. It's like he's grown with the character, and I feel like my version has grown too. So I definitely put those two in there. I put a little Vincent Price in there too.
Beautiful.
Because especially with the darkness, that dark wit about him, I feel and a little bit of that foppishness about him too. I kind of see like Joker being such a sexually ambiguous character too. He's and And so, yeah, that's why that's my version. And I wanted to have more of the look. That's one thing, like when they came to me, it's like, I want him to look more like the comic book. I'm I don't want to go for the ultra realistic look. I want more of that comic book look with the longer chin, the pointed nose and all that. And of course the rictus grin, because he's supposed to have this rictus grin. That's where because it's the same chemicals that gave him that rictus grin is what he uses in his gas, his Smilax, stuff like that. It's that same chemical formula that he does to other people. So I wanted that, and unfortunately, we didn't have the budget and the time to actually have Tatiana make an actual sculpt of my face and then sculpt a prosthetic off of that. We just found a prosthetic online that looked close enough to what we would like, but and my preference would be to, in the future, to actually have a true one made for me specifically, as both the face and also the hair. Because that's one thing too. We couldn't find a wig that actually had the widow's peak or anything like that. And man, so we may do, but we also were going for that aesthetic of more of a punk look to him, for like more of that 80s-ish look to him, and also like the wardrobe. It wasn't his traditional purple suit and stuff like that. But I looked at it because, we had our wardrobe person come in the last second. So we just cobbled things together on the spot. But how I look at it, I thought it was a brilliant thing this guy did. It's like he brought in a biker jacket with the spikes and everything on it, but he painted all over it. And I'm like, in my head, I did a lot of world building with that. I was like, okay, he actually took Jason's jacket and did his own shit to it just to mess with him, because he's had him tied up for a while. He's like, I'm going to take your thing and make it my thing just to mess with you, just to really get under your skin. And also show like, look, I can be street just like you, kid. I'm trying to get down to him on that level too. There's a lot of psychological play that Joker does with people. And that's a very subtle thing. And it wasn't really necessarily intentional at first, but it's something I thought of there in the fly. It's like, oh, this is perfect. This could actually work. Even though it's not his traditional purple suit, this is something he's adapted for this situation. To really mess with it. And is also, especially with Batman showing up, and here he is wearing Jason's jacket. That's just like, that's even more of a little
extra
middle finger right there to him.
A little jab to like, hey, not only did I kill him, but I'm also wearing his shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like a fight, like the final insult. Because I mean, like, especially like when you get like a leather jacket, you're like, this shit looks good. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta say that I absolutely love your passion for this, and you know what I mean, and like it is fun to watch you talk about it, because it's like you like really care about the character. And
I really do. I truly do care about this character. I want to do him right. I want to do him justice, because I'm so tired of not getting that version brought to life. That's the one thing I always feel is a shame, that Mark Hamill wasn't ever actually able to play him in real life on screen, because it would have been amazing to see. And that's something I want to bring to life, is more of that Hamillish version of the character, because I try. This is one thing I do every time I get read the comics, or like when I got the script, I try different voices with them just to see what works. And I gave it an attempt at some of those other alternative versions of Jokers, like Heath Ledger's or Joaquin Phoenix, all that kind of stuff. And that kind of voice, that cadence and everything, just doesn't fit actual Joker dialogue. It just does not work. But the Hamill and Romero combination, there's a musicality to him. There's because I look at Joker as being, he's so intelligent. He knows the power of words. And he's not just making jokes. There's a point behind everything he's doing. He's actually, people think it's all about chaos with him, but so much is thought out in his head. And he plays around with the English language, and he does a lot with musicality in his voice. It's like I like doing the highs and lows and varying things up. It's just like he likes to play, and And that's why I like that, especially the versions that, you know, Hamill and Romero have. They had that kind of playfulness with the English language in their voices.
You know,
It's almost like he's got like an internal composer. Like, you know,
Yeah.
he's got like the hands going up and down, like just like
He's
and
a
you can tell
showman.
that. Yeah, you can straight up like tell that like when he's like when the character is talking, you've got
Yeah.
the ebbs and flows, you've got like that roller coaster effect, the musicality that you're talking about. And like I've always looked at the Joker's character, regardless of who is portraying it, I've always looked at the Joker's character of having like this like a dark flamboyance to where
Yes.
it's like everything flows and it has that succinct flow to it, even though it's chaotic. It
Yeah.
still absolutely has that line that goes through it. And the flamboyance goes from the highs to the lows to the like every time he uses his voice in a certain cadence, it's to get a certain point across, whether it's
Yeah.
menace or whether it's like, kind of poking him with a stick. You know, when he gets up to the high voice, it's kind of like the poke, and then he gets down to the deep voice, and that's kind of the ominous, like, the menacing thing. And I like when I was watching Joker's Wild, this is what I thought was super cool about this, and which, by the way, I do want to shout out Aaron and that whole team. That what you guys were able to do with, I won't get into details about it, with essentially no budget. Like it was just like there really wasn't, much budget going on there. What you guys were able to pull off was such a cool portrayal of the character, and allowing you to like really show your verbal chops was something that I think was sorely missed from like all the other stuff that you've been able to do, because everybody knows you as that silent character, even in like the mean one. Everybody sees what you can do with your body and with your face and all these things that you can do. But unless people are going on YouTube and looking up a 10-year-old video of you doing Joker monologues, they don't really know that you've got this underneath all the paint, and underneath all the prosthetics. Like it was really awesome to see you bring that to life. And I know, like, as a proof of concept, this is a conversation that I've had with multiple independent filmmakers. It's so hard to get something to show somebody, whether it's an executive or whether it's a room full of people, to be like, I have this idea, I have this thing, it's going to work, like blah, blah, blah. They have these things, like you can only say so much. And now you have this piece of this where it's like, we did this with nothing. Give us something and we'll fucking knock this out of the park. Right. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
We can also like, talk a lot about, and wax poetically about it and everything, but it's also beautifully violent. It is so violent. It's so like
in such a good way.
Oh, it's like, if you like the violence of the Terrifier movies or of just like horror in general, this like takes like the violence level to that level, and it is so beautiful, and it's so beautiful to see it with like with familiar characters and with familiar stories, because it does take like a little chunk of the story and turns it into just such a like a magnificent like piece of like oh, it's like this is really happening. And so that had to be just so exciting to like just
very very exciting, very exciting. It's like the violence is also kind of funny, and that's what I was very happy with. It's just like, because he does, in the comic books, he does some heinous things, but there's also some kind of joke behind it too.
Right.
It's like one of my favorite moments was when he's with that room full of babies, and Gordon's wife comes in and he tosses her the baby and shoots her while she's going to catch this baby, and I'm like, God, that's so messed up. It's just like, but it's brilliant. It's so brilliant.
Brilliant.
It has a point.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, it is. And the writing is really great on like, so I unfortunately, and I say that now because of like the hindsight, I came back to a lot of the DC stuff. I read some DC stuff, but I was really whirlwinded up with the Marvel world of the X-Men and the X-Factor and Punisher and a lot of that stuff as a kid. And I still love all of that, and I still have those books. But like but going back and like reading these stories and like digging into like the Killing Joke and A Death in the Family and stuff like that over the last decade has been a lot of fun, because those stories are very well written, and there's things like that, like like killing Commissioner Gordon's wife, and like what I mean, and like and Batman nearly killing what I mean, like there is so much of those like little things, and it is things like I threw a baby in the air and you were either going to let the baby die or you were going to die, you know what I mean, and it's just and I get that that's what they were trying to get with the newer versions, and I like I said, we both like those versions, but it's really nice to see it like back to where, like I said, like back to where it like kind of belongs, which is like, and like Romero was great. Like a lot of people love to hassle about the fact that they painted over his mustache, and like that's a big talking point of that, but like that is
weird
the Joker.
But when you're watching his performance, you don't even notice it unless you're trying to notice it. It's because I didn't realize it for the longest time as a child that he had it painted over, because I was like, I wasn't looking for it. I was enjoying his performance.
Right. But for some reason people are like, oh, he didn't even care about the role. I'm like, I don't know. Like I mean, he's a pretty serious actor, and he was out there in a purple suit going, oh, you know what I mean? Like, and I used to come home every day after school, and in syndication I would watch Batman and then Star Trek, because like that was like make yourself unpopular hour after elementary school. Make yourself forever not cool. But it's so I watched those every day, and the Joker episodes were always the best. But they were all good. I mean, everybody was good on that entire show.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Is like I just wanted in my way to show that we could still do the comic book version of that character, have that fun maniacal version of the character, but also put him in a realistic setting, in a very adult violent setting, and it still works because it works on the page. It can work on screen. This is like I feel like when they've done all these recent adaptations, since The Dark Knight, they're all trying to be way too realistic, and they've lost the essence of that character, what has made him be so many people's favorite villains for over 80 years. And they've lost that that the showman, the fun side of him. They're just like, let's just be way serious and really creepy with him. I'm like, no, the creepiness comes from all of that. It's not, he doesn't intentionally try to be creepy. It just comes from that.
You know, it's the curveball Joker performance actually that I think people definitely don't talk about almost ever, is actually the voice performance of the character from Mortal Kombat 11.
Oh yeah,
I shit you not. That is such an odd one, because like it's such a, like, if you take away the aspect of it being a Mortal Kombat game and you focus on the vocal performance of the character of the Joker in the game, that's pretty close to like what the comic book Joker would be, just with obviously with the Mortal Kombat twist. But like whenever he's doing the vocal parts on it, it's kind of like, fuck, where's that Joker? You know what I mean? Like that dude, like that Joker should be in movies. Why is that Joker only on a video game for 30 seconds at a time?
Yeah. It's like I love the movie The Batman recently, that when it came out, and I was like, God, it's one of my favorite Batman movies. But the one part in the movie I hated was the Joker in it. I was like, this is so weak.
The Barry Keoghan that one, because it's weird, because that portrayal of it is like, especially depending, like, because we don't know where it's going to go, like what they're going to do with it. But if that Joker portrayal is just in Arkham, and he's all like scarred and fucked up from like Batman literally beating the scars onto his face, like that one I feel like could go to a cool movie place, but it's not going to be anywhere close to the comic book.
No.
Like, and it's going to be it's going to be kind of like a Heath Ledger one in that sense, where it's just going to be like super
that's what it seemed that
grounded.
they were going for, was the Heath Ledger. It was, even with his voice and everything, it was like, oh, hi, Harry. I was like,
yeah,
there we go.
Like, don't do that.
No, and it's that movie actually inspired me. I like the movie. I'm just going to come out right.
Oh, I love the movie.
Very good movie.
But like,
love the movie.
In my mind, in my comedy mind, I'm like, so the Dark Knight trilogy was a gritty reboot, and then they just added more grit to this reboot. And then I wrote a article for the Hard Times called like Hollywood runs dangerously low on grit, threatening upcoming sequels, because like you can't just keep pouring grit on, you know what I mean? Like, like what's next? Like Batman is just like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like you could just keep going darker and darker and darker with it. And
the true Dark Knight.
Right, exactly. And
was this filmed on Super 16 millimeter? There's so much grit on this movie.
But where like your betrayal is it's great because it's way more brutal, but it's not grittier. It's just better. I don't know. I'm just gonna say it's better. Like it's like fun because it's just like comic booky, and like it's still what you love about the comic books with like the violence. And I get what they were trying to do with in the DC universe at that point. It was trying to make everything like dead ass serious, but like comic books aren't really dead ass serious. And even though the Joker is like a complex thing, like the visual thing, and it's what made Cesar Romero so good, was that he was goofy and he was ridiculous and still mean and crazy. And to be able to find that, you know, and to be able to be like, huh, who's out there?
Yeah,
that does something like who is a ridiculous character that is the most brutal thing in the world. Let me write down all of the David Thornton. You know what I mean? Like it's like, you know what I mean? Because like, you know, like because art is, you know, is you know, hilarious. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, so I'm so glad that this role has found you, and hopefully the James Gunn goes like, you know, no, this is the thing, and gets a whole new watching base for his upcoming DC universe.
That's the hope, because I love James's work. You know, it's because I follow him on, you know, different social media because I love his posts, because you can tell he's an actual comic book fan.
Yeah,
he loves the source material, and he's just not like another director just trying to make a paycheck. He actually gives a damn about it, and it's like, and that's why I would love to work with someone like him, because I feel like I could actually sit down with him and like, let's really talk about this character in depth, what we love about him, what we can do with him. Let's like bring, you know, that to life. Let's bring the comic book to life, what people have loved about this character for so long, but also do our own thing with it too. Make it gritty, because you can make it gritty and still stay true to it, because you look at the comic books, especially the 80s version of Joker, the Killing Joke version of Joker, that time period. Good God, he had some fantastic takes on life,
right,
on madness, what drives people to do what they're doing, all that. It's he's a very thought-provoking villain, and he has these really profound takes on life. And you can get into that grittiness of that character in that way, but also make him entertaining and fun to watch too. And I think it's that juxtaposition of these profound ideologies that he has mixed with that maniacal comedic nature that make him so compelling to watch on screen or in the comic books.
Absolutely. And yeah, you're the guy to bring that to life, because like I will guarantee you, and I'm not going to say that, I'm not, of course, would never say anything bad about the great Heath Ledger or anybody else who's portrayed him. I'm going to be really honest, and this is going to sound crazy, but I actually haven't seen the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movies. It just for whatever reason, it just doesn't. This is going to sound really weird, but I kind of care about the character a little bit more than I feel like those movies are going to offer me. And I don't want to see him as just a struggling dude. I want to the Joker has to be sometimes too much backstory is a bad thing.
Especially with Joker, you're not supposed to know who he is anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
As Joker even says, if you have to explain the joke, there is no joke.
Exactly. And it's kind of I mean, they did it to Darth Vader, and and I'm sorry, but they turned the main villain of my youth, the king of villains, into
stand.
Yeah, exactly, to an angsty kid, and yeah, maybe that's the point. He's just a simple it is, but there's something to it, and honestly, the Joker movies just I just don't it just doesn't interest me in that regard. I just don't want the backstory of my life is broken, so I'm just going to become a psychopath. That's not really how becoming a psychopath works. Anyways,
it's just how it is. It's basically the Joker is the real version of his who he really is. It's just like how he and Batman are the same coin with different sides.
Right.
Yeah. They're both that same thing. It's who he actually is not who he actually is.
Right.
The same thing with Batman. Batman is Batman. Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Right.
Whoever Joker was before Joker, that was the mask. Joker, that's who he truly is. And Joker understands that about Batman, and Batman understands that about him. Batman, most likely, actually, they have revealed in the comics that he has known who Joker actually was, but that was irrelevant to him. And same thing with Joker. He knows who Batman is.
Right.
He knows. He's not stupid.
Right.
But that's irrelevant to him. That doesn't matter to him because that's not who he truly is. And that's why I love the whole the death of the family story arc. They get into depth about that whole thing. It was no, you are Batman. You are not Bruce Wayne. You are Batman. And all these other people that you've adapted into your Bat family have changed you for the worse. They've changed who you are, made you weaker. And I don't like that. And that's why I want to get rid of them, because I need you to be back to who you were, because it's just supposed to be you and me, buddy. We complete each other. We need each other, because my craziness is needed for you to come into this town and clean it up.
Right.
You need my chaos.
That's something that I think, as much as the Heath Ledger Joker was far outside of what what you would consider to be a Joker portrayal, that's the one part of it that I did really like, is that there was a lot of that they talked about, you completely, I need you, I can't.
That's the one thing I really liked about his that I liked that a lot. It's yes, that gets into the nitty gritty, that relationship between those two characters. They do need each other.
He's kill you. It's
I need you.
And he does. He says that in the death of the family arc. He's I will never actually kill you. I'll kill everybody around you, but I will not kill you because I need you in my life. You give me purpose. I need you. But he's but I want you to kill me, because if you kill me, I have won and I've proved my point.
Right.
Yeah. And I
love that.
That was the other thing also, the Dark Knight the other thing the Dark Knight got right was that nobody knows who he is or where he came from or anything because with all of his clothing, having no tags, having no fibers that can be traced to anything. And then also the other part of it that I thought they got right was the fact that he was not about money. He was not about any of that. He was just none of this shit matters. He was this is, none of this means anything to me. Now, I want to say this because as we were talking, this made me think of it, and it's kind of a fucked up thought, but I think it's also very accurate. This is what's wrong with Hollywood's portrayal of the Joker, is that the best comic book accurate portrayal of the Joker in Hollywood has been Jim Carrey's Riddler. Like, as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, Jim just wanted to play the Joker, so he just did the Joker. Like, that's all he did.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, as I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, oh fuck, that was the Joker, just in Riddler clothes. Like, that's all that was.
It really was. It's a more accurate version of Joker than Jack Nicholson's version of Joker.
Yeah. Like, yeah, we knew who Jack Nicholson's Joker was. We shouldn't have known that. Like, that's, we shouldn't have known who that guy was.
Yeah.
So I want to say this also, like, before we get all this wrapped up, I want to say, first off, that, like, Aaron is such a big fan of the Joker, and he has been for as long as I've known him. And it was kind of cool because I reached out to him for something else. And he was like, I have something better to show you. And I was like, oh, what's that? Because we were talking about movies. And he was like, I have something way better to show you. And then he sent me the shot of you, like the test screening shot. I was like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, is that David? He's like, you're goddamn right, it's David. And I'm like, dude, like, it came together, like, and then when we saw the final product, it was just like, I know how hard Aaron works, and I know how hard his team works, and I know what, like, behind the scenes, I know the shit he's gone through on the Hollywood side of it. Like, I know a lot about it. And to see this come together, even just like as this proof of concept, is like, it's such a ray of sunshine, and it's both cool for his aspect of it too, of course, and his team, but also, like I said before, you being able to showcase what you can do underneath the paint, underneath the mask, underneath the prosthetics, and you really getting to show that off was just, music to my ears. Because like I said, I knew that you had it. I obviously already knew that. But man, to really see it come together, especially as like this horror version, or like horror adjacent version of the Death of the Family Joker, it's just, if somebody gives you guys just a little bit to work with, man, you guys are going to be able to make some gold.
Yep.
So I'm fingers crossed that the right people see
it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to put that kind of stuff out to the universe. Like I mentioned this to Aaron. We were talking about it. It's like, it worked for Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It did.
I mean, really, that he was like, yeah, it's very true. He and now he is Deadpool. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, yeah.
He's like, I leaked my own shit. He was like, I did that because they told me I couldn't. I was like, actually, everybody needs to see this. So, like, I'm either gonna be Deadpool or I'm not. So, like,
sometimes you just have to show the people what they want, and then they'll realize what they want.
Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, and like, I get it. They have the money and they have to make the choices, and they have to look at it. They have to, bust out the abacus and figure out, the slide rule and figure out what they can pay the investors back with her. But like, also like, don't discount what the fans like. You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't discount what we're gonna like. And
cough, Terrifier, cough.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, we couldn't be talking to a better person about this. This isn't just me making it up. This is just like, oh no, like Damien said,
literal living proof. Like,
Damien said, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna make my own shit, and I'm gonna, what I mean, and I'm gonna put it out myself, and I'm just gonna do it how I want to do it." And here we are, like, with the 40, like with movies that made all the boring crap that they stuck out this year. They're like, how did they do that? You know what I mean? So,
they believed in it. That's why.
Right.
Belief in a project? Get out of here.
So normally this is the time of the show where we have where we're winding down, where we ask the Sinister Six, or that we now call it the kill list. But Jonas, do you want to explain to our listeners what we're going to do today?
Yeah, so we don't have Graham here today, so Graham's usually the one that does the kill list, and also because we had David on the show, I wanted to reach out to a Facebook group called the Art the Clown Appreciation Society, who David is very familiar with. Honestly, because you know what, when it comes to a fan base, I mean, they're like 45,000 deep, in that group, and it's a private group. It's not even a public group. That's like people that were privately accepted to this group that are fans of both David and Art and Terrifier and everything. So I opened it up to them to ask questions, and they filled it up with questions. So I'm going to throw a couple out here to you, David. You can answer them however you want. Could be short, could be long, however you want to do it. And we're going to hit some that have to do with Terrifier and some that have to do with Joker. The first one here, I'm going to hit you with which parts of the Joker character as a whole do you identify with the most?
Probably, I would say his wit. It is how he likes to play with words. I love puns. I'm a big pun person myself, and I've always liked how he can tie puns into his machinations, and I come from a family of English teachers. So I have a true appreciation for the English language, and my grandmother. Oh my God, I wish I had her level of linguistic abilities, because she could just really play with the English language and just twist and turn it, and it's like, and that's so. I guess I'm feeling at it right now.
no, it's funny. I'm a huge fan of the English. I'm a huge fan of like words and stuff in general.
I love wordplay.
Yeah, but that's why I love stand-up comedy, and that's why I love hip hop, and it's why I love I love Kurt Vonnegut and John Didion and all these like word masters, Shakespeare, all these things.
Yeah.
So I fully appreciate.
He's quite the master debater.
Yeah, exactly.
So that one, just so you know, Mariah Fryer Sherwin, that was from her. So she's a big contributor in there.
Thank you, Mariah.
Next, yeah, absolutely, Mariah. So the next one that we got here, I'm going to go with from Jill Tainter. A question that I have is, what type of role would you like to play outside of the horror genre?
Oh my gosh, I would love to get back into comedy again. I'd really love to do some good comedies. Gosh, especially like, The Mask would be a fun one to bring back.
Yeah, sure.
Ooh, that would be a good
fun reboot of The Mask and make it more comic book accurate. But also I'd love to bring back the Pink Panther in some way.
That would be fun.
I love Inspector Clouseau.
Mm-hmm.
I love that character. Of course, no one's ever going to surpass the amazingly talented Peter Sellers. I'm like, oh my God. But I love those movies so much. So,
I love that.
Oh, I love it.
All right, this one could be an exclusive. I don't know. This one's from Bree Shear. She wants to know, what was the funniest thing that happened on the Terrifier set?
The funniest thing that happened, I'm trying to think of part 3. It was probably funny for everybody else, was me almost puking. I think everybody else was enjoying that. But yeah, I'm trying to think of things in particular. It's like, because so many things would just happen in the moment, and it would just be funny. It was like, especially like just blood splattering on people when they didn't need it. They didn't want it, or in unfortunate ways and stuff like that. But I'm like, yeah, we definitely had a lot of funny moments. I was probably the funniest moments, though, were probably when we were shooting the bar scene. It was just Danny Roebuck and Bradley Stryker and Clint Howard and I are just goofing around and playing around, and we'd just sometimes just erupt in fits of laughter, because we're just like, this is so absurd what we're doing right now. I'm peeing on Santa's lap, Like, what is this?
Cloudy.
Yeah.
So that was a funny scene too, because Art looked over at Santa and did like the whole like
the
whole like, pew, ew. Just to be clear, the scene that made you sick was the rat scene, right?
Yeah, Aunt Jess. I can't stand puke. I do not like puke. And we filmed so much more puke than what you see in the movie too. There was much more vomit coming out, so I was like, oh God, that was not fun.
Yeah.
I'm
a snot guy. Snot I can't do.
And then you're like, then you're like, then it's not even like in the movie. You're like, dude, I went through this for.
Yeah. Oh no, because the whole time there's like, can my stunt double do this for me, or can Steve Dalsell fill in to be my arm right now? I was like, no, Dave, your face is totally in the shot. My face is not the shot.
There's a funny thing. There was a funny thing that happened on the set. Perfect.
Yeah. I think they just wanted to see if they could get me to puke. I swear that's what it was. Their way of messing with me.
Of course. I mean, that's got to be a badge of honor. We made Art the Clown puke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, they had the cameras out and everything filming me just in case. They were ready. They were ready.
I'm sure. All right. I got two more. This one's from William B. Strange. Who would win in a fight, Art in human form or the Joker?
Yes, that's a good point with the human form. God, I hate to say it would probably be Joker. He'd find something. Joker's smart. He's very smart. He's always like 5 steps ahead of everybody else. He's always got some kind of contingency plan or something like that. So he'd figure something out.
That's a really solid question because like it's really gone in my mind. I mean, Art is a bit meaner than the Joker. Like, you know what I mean? Like Art runs on a real.
The Joker's more crafty.
The Joker's more crafty, but there's something
Art's
to
crafty though, but it would be a pretty interesting fight.
Yeah,
to say the least though. But at the same time, I think Joker would be like, "Dude, you are fucked up." I always think back to like the animated series where that schlubby guy just turns on Joker at one point and he just goes off on this tangent, and Joker's like, "Oh my god, keep him away from me!" Like this guy screwed up in the head.
All right, so this last question is from Tom Tavano or Tavano. Sorry if I get your names wrong on this. This one is a very Northeast specific question. Is it Taylor ham or pork roll?
I've never heard Taylor ham before. So I guess pork roll.
You've never heard Taylor ham?
No, I've never heard that.
Going pork roll.
Yeah.
Pork roll.
Yeah, I'm a Southern boy, though, so I just go with barbecue.
All right. Well, those are the questions from the Art the Clown Appreciation Society for this round. Those were awesome answers, by the way, David. Thank you very much, and I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Again, shout out to that group. You guys are super fans. Taylor ham and pork roll are the same thing, but there's an internal like Hatfields and McCoys fight between like New Jerseyans that like are like it's fucking pork roll. No, it's Taylor ham, and then like they fight each other over it.
It's like the exact same shit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Soda. Yeah, like soda and pop. Yeah.
Love it. We'll get to recommendations. Jonas, you got anything good?
So recommendations. So because it's coming up to the end of the year, I'm going to tell people to watch a movie that they may have missed because I know a lot of people that have missed this movie, and it's a shame. Strange Darling. Catch it before the end of the year. It is so fucking good. You got Will Fitzgerald and you got Kyle Gallner in the lead roles. It's one of those movies that's split up into chapters, but it's non-linear and it works perfectly because of that. Super dark and gritty. Like it's like a much, much darker version of a Tarantino film, kind of is like one of the better ways to put it. And it's like, it's easily one of the best movies of the year that didn't get the recognition it deserved. And Kyle Gallner was the biggest cheerleader for that movie. He was all over social media telling people to share it, repost it, blah, 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 just all those things. And I've talked to too many people that haven't seen it. So yes, definitely check out Strange Darling. Yep. It's on physical media, and I think you can rent it on like Prime and whatnot. And I'm going to re-recommend musically Samurai Pizza Cats because I've listened to their whole filmography now and they fucking rule.
I used to love that show back in the day.
I was going to say, being a electronic death metal band that's named after that show also just tickles my fancy and makes me smile. And also they're big horror fans. Most of their music videos are very horror adjacent. So physical media wise, I have to do this because of our guest. I've got the whole David Howard Thornton collection on Steelbook. I do. I have the Terrifiers. I have all of them. I've got the Mean One on Steelbook. I've got all 3 Terrifiers on Steelbook. Like
That's so cool.
The thing about these is that these are the Steelbooks from a variety of different places, but there's a lot of really cool editions out for like Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3. I know like Umbrella Entertainment had a cool one. And the Mean One just came out on Steelbook, and I'm big on physical media, so whenever I can get cool editions like this, I try to. But I will say that all the Terrifier films and the Mean One, all of them, real solid physical media releases. Like none of them are phoned in, so they're very cool. And I know that you can get them all over the place from some boutique retailers and stuff, so seek them out. Ryan, what do you got?
I got a cool independent horror release from Sarah DeRosa. I came across her on TikTok, and she had great horror recommendations. And then she also she's an author. She has a bunch of good books, and this book is called Mortifier, and it actually takes place in the Terrifier universe.
Really?
Yeah, it does. And actually, the main character Mort is related to Art the Clown. He himself, and that's kind of where it ends in here, but it belongs in there. And she got this. It's a really great book. Mort is a wannabe clown in a traveling circus. He finds a injured skunk. He takes in. He's a challenged adult. We'll put it that way. He's a challenged, like 40-something-year-old man. He finds the skunk. He nurtures the skunk back to life. And nobody wants him to have the skunk. So, and as they try to push the skunk away, the problems with Mort seem to rise. And then this technically falls under the splatterpunk banner, but it is also like a really kind of cool story. And you really care about Mort, and you really care about the skunk, and you really want him to do good, himself to do good, and you really don't like his antagonists, and you're rewarded. So please check out Sarah DeRosa's Mortifier. It's a great book. She just had a new one come out. I just got it in the mail. You can find her stuff on Amazon, or you can look up Sarah DeRosa horror, and she has like a website with like merch and stuff like that. So yeah, so Mortifier, check it out.
Cool.
David, what do you got?
Oh boy, I've been having to catch up on things. So like some of my stuff's more like a little older, but
Yeah, please.
I finally got to see some things. So like for one, it sounds silly, but I watched that movie Red One recently on Prime.
Yep.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah,
I was like,
it
was kind of a fun movie.
Yeah,
it was like
totally
fun.
Yep.
Yeah, especially I love how they use a lot of practical effects in there, especially with Krampus's kingdom and all of his underlings and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's really cool. So that was fun. But I just finally started watching The Penguin, and I've been loving that so far. I'm like, oh my god, so good, good.
It's so good.
He is so good in that too. It's just like I'm still like, how is that Colin Farrell? I'm like, and I was one of his big like detractors when they first cast him as Penguin. I'm like, what are you? But it's like, as I saw in the Batman, I was like, oh no, he's great. But this even more so. You're just, he's so good in it. He's so good. But I'm loving it. Totally loving it. But also, video game wise, I just finished today playing Black Myth Wukong, which is fantastic. Because I've always loved the Journey to the West story with the Monkey King, and this is a great version of that. And it's a great, action adventure Souls type game. It's tough, very tough. I've cussed a lot playing it, but it's fair at the same time. You just got to get good, and I had a lot of fun playing it, so I highly recommend it.
Awesome,
fantastic.
I don't play a lot of video games, but when I do play them, I love them. So I would like. Speaking of which, everybody's got to get in their Friday the 13th rounds before the first of the year, because the servers are going down. Yeah. So that's that was I was really excited when that game came out. Kane Hodder's involvement and all of that stuff was really exciting. Unfortunately, the complications of I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, I get it, writers and maker, you know what I mean, like that's their, everybody wants their cut, and as a writer and content creator myself, I get it, so so I appreciate it, but it's sad that we lost the game. So David, taking time from this insane schedule that I'm certain that you have, and from the insane worlds that has been thrust, that you have ushered in for yourself. That's probably the best way to say it. It really means a lot to us, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing out there and for the care. I love following you on social media. You are a very good person. And
thank you.
And and as we try to be good voices in horror, and to remind people that it's not all a bunch of meatheady dudes who just want to see that there's something to this. It's very enjoyable to chat with you about the passion and the efforts that you put into these projects, and it is also nice to see that being rewarded, and the rewards that you're getting now, and the
Thank
success. We look forward to the fourth Terrifier movie, and the
official release of Joker's Wild when that comes up, hopefully soon.
Yes.
Yep.
Should be very soon.
And James Gunn, if you're listening, do it. And also, I'm just gonna say it again. Freddy Krueger. Just another
dream role.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm just another funny murderer. I need, you know what I mean? I need you in all those roles. You know what I mean?
If there's anybody who fits the role.
Yeah, is there anybody who can
literally anybody listening that has any stake in that?
Yeah. I mean, if there's a person to take that torch, I'm just gonna put that out there. And I knew that from the first movie. So David, thank you so much for joining us. You're a true treasure.
Thank you for having me, guys. Been great chatting with you.
Thank you. And thanks to all our listeners. Go check out our Patreon at patreon.com at AGHP 666. We have everything from $1 tiers to $20 tiers. We're not going to get into the whole Graham's usually here reading the Army of the Goddamned. Just so you know, we haven't forgot about you. I love you. He just has the list.
We love you very much.
And I didn't make the list beforehand, and I sat here before, and I was like, oh shit. So Graham really has two jobs on this show, and that's mine.
When he's not here, it all falls apart.
It all falls apart. He is the keystone of our success. But thank you all so much. Please make sure you're taking care of yourself, please. The holidays are about over, and if we've made it this far, you can keep making it this far. And please take care of yourself. If you ever need an ear, you hit us up on social media and just chat, and we'll be like, yeah, that fucking sucks. We get it. Like, you know what I mean? Because we've all been through it. Please take care of yourselves. All us horror people have to do this stuff together, and we love you. This world is harder than it needs to be, and we want you to be here with us next year so we can complain about the movies next year. Okay? So we love you all. Take care of yourselves, please, and until we see you next time, please start some fires and break some glass.